Detroitlions will rise.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people, shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future. Evolution.
All right. What's happening, everybody? It is Mock Draft Monday. I'm going to mock my mock. Mock the hell out of my mock. Whatever you want to do. Have some fun with it, though. Make sure we got everything rolling here. It's been one of those days. Hope everyone's doing all right. It is Monday night. Looks like we got a few people in tonight. So is anything going to change this week? I took a look at last week's mock. Let me just start with that. And of course, this week I'm probably going to do some trades. I really don't want to, but I'm going to do a lot of this live tonight. I didn't really prep a whole lot for it. I don't really think a ton has changed. Maybe the first couple of picks might get switched around. But last week I put Jalen Milroe as my best quarterback this season coming out of the draft so far. That more than likely isn't going to last, right? We've got the combine this week. It's probably not going to last. Problem is, Shedeur Sanders isn't going to throw. He's not going to do anything but pro days. So we have to wait till pro days to try to figure out when this guy's going to do anything. What is he going to do? So it kind of throws a wrench into everything after the combine this week. Where's Shedeur going to land? Is someone going to move up for him? Well, let's hope that he's got some pro days in hand. And maybe he's purposely trying to tank his spot. Maybe he wants to make it to number 6. Maybe he wants the Raiders to take him. It's quite possible. Could be playing the game. So it's those kind of things that kind of mess things up for us this week. All right, so let's get it rolling. I don't want to be in here all night tonight. Make sure I got this thing up for you guys, though. There we go. So we at least had the top 8 picks or whatever on the screen at one time. So last week I had Jalen Milroe. That's going to change tonight. Number 2, I had Abdul Carter. Then I had Cam Ward. Then Calvin Banks Jr. No trades. Travis Hunter. Then Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders. Mason Graham to the Jets. James Pierce to the Panthers. Will Johnson to the Saints. Jack Sawyer to the F them Bears. So that was my top 10 from last week. Let's see what's about to happen this week. I got to get some stuff pulled up first, though. Okay, so when I look at, from the top down, like if we're going to undress this thing and try to figure out what should happen, what could happen, what may happen, I got to be honest. I said it last week. I don't see how any of these teams that are picking in the top 5 of this draft should really be sticking around. Like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me for them to not trade. The problem is finding a trade partner, finding someone that's willing to pay your ransom. And that's what it is. It's going to be a small ransom to be able to move up in this draft. And when I think about the Titans and I look at the situation they're in, I'm thinking to myself, why would you stay at 1 to take a quarterback when you have an opportunity to really do something great for your team? You got a decent set of picks. I mean, 30, let's see where they at. They are at 135, 101, 118, 141. They have a good set of picks. You know, they got 4 in the top 118, and they could probably add 3, 4 more picks in this draft. An extra first, maybe. Definitely an extra second. An extra first next year. I would trade back. They still have Will Levis under contract. They still have Mason Rudolph under contract. So the question is, why would you even think for 1 minute that you can't limp through 2025 and continue to build out your team? That's what I would do. That's exactly what I would do if I was in that situation. And the same thing goes for the Browns. Not much is going to happen there. I think that if they lose Myles Garrett before the draft, which would be the best time to trade him, then they're going to have to do the same thing. Why take a quarterback when you've got so many holes on that team to fill first? But we're talking about teams that have been consistently redundant in their approach. They haven't really done anything much different throughout the last couple of decades. It has made them a winning franchise. I mean, the Browns were, what were they, 11-win team just a couple of seasons ago? And now they're right back to nothing. That's not a mistake. Like, that's the Browns. That's what used to be the Lions. So here we go. Let's kick it off without a trade. If the Titans decide to stay, I don't think it's a quarterback now. I think that this is going to end up being the best overall player right now in this draft that is not a quarterback. I think that would be a giant mistake for them. Sorry, I'm trying to get my screens up so we can even start this draft. There we go. So I think that player is not a quarterback, and if they're going to stay at 1 and not take a quarterback, it is Abdul Carter. I think he has the potential to go number 1 overall. The consensus right now, across multiple sources, is Cameron Ward going number 1, Abdul Carter going to the Browns, which I also think makes great sense. Travis Hunter going to New York. I think that there's a possibility that, Shedeur Sanders could pop into New York and Travis Hunter could slip to 6, as I said last week. But now I'm beginning to wonder if Tennessee is going to be smart enough to try to get off of their pick. And if they do, I mean, who would reach up to take it? So I think that there's a possibility that the Raiders could move up and get their man with either the Browns or the Titans. And they have enough picks to be able to get it done. They have plenty of cap, over the next couple of seasons to do a lot with free agency, which they can give up some draft capital and not have to worry about drafting. But the exercise we did this morning when we were talking about, look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They had, 11 players in the top 101 or 12 of PFF? How did they get there? Well, they got there from drafting. They didn't get there from free agency. The Eagles won the Super Bowl through drafting, which is what Brad Holmes is doing, drafting. So for me, if a team wants to get somewhere in a hurry and if they want to win some football games, it's going to be through the draft. And this is where you have to be smart. Don't take the wrong quarterback. Don't take a quarterback just because you need one. You're better off with Mason Rudolph. You're still better off with Will Levis if you added an Abdul Carter to that mix, or a Mason Graham to that mix, or a tackle to that mix. I just don't have a number 1 overall grade on a tackle. So trade options, I think it could be Could be the Raiders. It could be the Jets, but I think the Jets would be making an unwise move too by trying to take a quarterback. Unless they believe in Shedeur Sanders and that's who they want, then I could see where they might try to make a move. But Abdul Carter is going to be my pick this week for Mock Draft 2.0. Go ahead and mock it. What do you say? Browns on the clock at number 2. I could say the same exact thing for what I just said about the Titans. Get out of this pick. Do not accept anything but, a king's ransom for this number 2 overall pick. Someone is going to want Cam Ward. Someone is going to want Shedeur Sanders. It happens every single season. So what are you going to do about it? You still have plenty of options on the table. Even if you back up 5, 6, 7, 8 picks, you're still going to end up with a top tier player. If the Browns lose Myles Garrett, here's the play. If the Browns lose Myles Garrett, they are going to pick here. Without a doubt. I almost think that would be idiotic, though. Currently, the Browns they literally only have 3 picks this year. Is that what I'm seeing? They have a first round number 2 overall. And pick 33, that can't be right. That absolutely can't be right. Hold the phone here. Why is that saying that? Oh, never mind. I didn't select a full draft. My apology. I only selected 2 rounds for this first round. So the Browns definitely have, plenty of draft picks by adding or by getting rid of Myles Garrett. So by adding all of those picks that they'll get from Myles Garrett, then I think that they would pick here. But I still think that's foolish. Even if Abdul Carter goes number 1 overall, it does not make sense to sit there and try to replace him with the next best edge at number 2. You can get the next best edge probably at number 12, number 10, somewhere in that range. You could grab a really good defensive lineman in place of him, at number 2, but I still think that's foolish. Somebody, again, is going to want Cam Ward. Yeah, you're without a quarterback right now. I mean, the Browns' quarterback situation is not great. Deshaun Watson maybe has played his last down, hopefully. Jameis Winston, free agent. They have Dorian Thomas-Robinson and Bailey Zapp. Roll it with Bailey for a season. Just roll it. Have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? Build the team. Don't waste a pick to waste a pick. But if they get a boatload of picks for Myles Garrett, and then you back up out of this and you add a bunch more, which will be a first-round pick swap and a first-round pick next year, and probably a second and a third for number 2, for anyone even trading within the top 12 picks will be, we'll have to spend that kind of capital. So I would back up. I would load up on picks. And then not only are you saving money by drafting players and not having to spend money in free agency, you're starting to kick the can down the road a little bit with having more draft picks, up closer in the draft where you can then wheel and deal some more, add more picks. That is how you take a team that is upside down in draft capital and flip it back up on the right side up. And you could do it in as little as 2 seasons, and then you've rebuilt your squad, and then you grab your quarterback of the future, and the Browns could be back in this within 3 seasons. I don't see why they couldn't. But something tells me they're going to go ahead and draft a quarterback anyway, because that's what Browns do. They make big mistakes. Abdul Carter's off the board. Cameron Ward is probably that guy. And so that is going to be my pick for the Browns at number 2. I don't agree with it. I just feel like that's what's going to happen. I don't think that they're going to play the smart move here and get out of this pick, especially if Myles Garrett is gone. Am I talking craziness or am I talking sense here? I got to close a couple of these. So the Browns, potentially losing Myles Garrett, like I said, they are expected to select Abdul Carter if he was there. I don't think he's going to be there. If the Titans get smart and they don't trade and they don't take a quarterback, I think Carter's gone. And with that, next up, we would have the New York Giants. All right, mock the pick. So Kevin Barr says salty Browns save like $16 million if they trade him after June 1st. Yeah, you can trade after June 1st. You have to designate him after June 1st. I don't know the full I don't know the full details on how that will work. You could designate post June 1. I just don't know the full details. Full Slate Farm says there's no trade designation. There is only a re-sign with the Browns and trade, which other teams won't want to do. I don't know where you're getting that from, Full Slate. So if they're going to do a trade, more than likely Myles Garrett will be able to work out a deal just like with Matthew Stafford right now. So Matthew Stafford's been given the green light to go seek a trade. If Garrett's given the green light to go seek a trade, they will work out their contract with the next team before the trade happens. So you get the contract all buttoned up. Well, then it's between, let's say, the Browns and the Lions. They have to agree on how much draft capital they're going to be giving the Browns to bring in Myles Garrett. Are the Browns going to pay any of the contract? More than likely no, because they don't have any money as it is. So it's going to be a picks for Garrett. Garrett signs a new contract in Detroit. All speculation, but that's how I see it playing out. He'll be able to go work out a new deal with his agent, with his expected team, just like how Matthew Stafford is right now. So you could do a post June 1. I think that all that really means is he just can't hit your field until after June 1. And I don't know that you really need Myles Garrett to do that. He's been around plenty. So the Giants, look, they're projected to trade up right now. They're projected to trade up to the number 1 pick and select Cam Ward, which, again, I'm just not thoroughly impressed with this quarterback class. I think that it would make much more sense for them to continue to build and do that without the highest rated quarterback. Do that with the highest rated defensive tackle. Do that with the highest rated offensive tackle. Do it with an area of your team that you're more weak at. Ward's experience across different levels of college football positions, it does give him an edge, right, as a franchise quarterback. It absolutely does. But is it also a disadvantage? How is it viewed as an asset that you have all of this experience at all of these other positions? So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be an edge. I don't know if it's going to be a drawback for him in the draft. But as far as him going to New York, right now it's the Giants moving up to number 1, and that's going to cost them. It's definitely going to cost them some big bucks to move up, and I think that's the smart play for the Tennessee Titans. But right now, Abdul Carter's gone. Cam Ward is gone because I think the Browns are going to royally screw this up. And then that leaves Travis Hunter, Mason Graham. And when you look at what the Giants really need right now, which, let me go back to my list. As far as the Giants go, the consensus has been Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, by everybody, or Cameron Ward if Cameron Ward somehow slips and the Giants don't need to trade up. But we're assuming the Giants are going to hold pat. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not moving up. They're not moving back. They're going to stick right where they are. What do? They just gave up Saquon Barkley to watch him go run roughshod in Philly. Do we see a halfback by the name of Ashton Genty go at number 3? Do they fill the pipeline of their future running back right now? It's possible. I've seen dumber things done. I do believe they're right now they're not happy with the fact that Saquon just went and had an incredible season. Something that the Giants couldn't offer him. Why? Well, they don't have the rest of the team. They still need a tackle or 2, right? They need an offensive line. And I think that that's where you need to start. I think you absolutely have to start with your offensive line. But you also can't pass up on, and I hate to use the G word, the generational talent, because we don't know what Travis Hunter's really going to turn out to be. But I think that the consensus for the Giants is quarterback, tackle, DB. They could go interior defensive line. They absolutely could. But here's where I'm at. I think that the Giants obviously are going to stick where they are because they're not doing trades today. And I think they go interior defense or interior offensive line. I think that they're going to look to try to protect the quarterback of the future, wherever they do find that quarterback. And they take the number 1 tackle off the board, which, again, I still think it's early for this. But Will Campbell goes to the Giants. I know, it's crazy. That's why it's called Mock My Mock. Now, this is going to get real fun next week once we have all the data after the combine. Yeah, John Desage says the Browns have a lot of picks. They do. They have a lot of picks. The Panthers. Why is this not letting me slide it? Come on. I think the Panthers have 9 or 10 in this draft too. The Panthers is a team that I'm expecting the Lions to possibly be trade bait with. My screens are just not behaving. Tuck it over here. I'm trying to put the chat in front of me somewhere. All right, number 4. Patriots, same kind of thing, man. The Patriots, look, they could use everything as well. They need to protect their quarterback. They are expected to select some sort of an offensive player, with the first part of this draft. The fact that they need a running back, I mean, you could see Genti go as high as number 4 in this case and go to the Patriots. It is probably more of the expected that they're going to do something in the trenches. They need a tackle. They need a guard. They also need a wide receiver. They need a running back. I have no doubt that the Patriots are going to go offensive-minded here. So when you still have Travis Hunter on the board, when you still have Mason Graham on the board, when you have J.D. Barron on the board, or Jade Barron, why wouldn't you move back? If you don't want any of those players, which would be stupid, why would you sit there? You have to trade back at that point, especially if you're only walking back to number 6, which is what I think could happen. The Raiders trade with the Patriots, and this is where Shedeur Sanders ends up a Raider. That's my trade right here. My trade is either with New York or the Patriots with the Raiders. They move up 2 or 3 spots, and this is where they get Shedeur Sanders. But no trades. Patriots aren't moving. They're going to need either the best next tackle off the board, or the best player overall that is still on the board. Patriots need offense. I think they could get some offense out of Travis Hunter only because he can play both ways. They do need a receiver, even though Travis Hunter is not truly an offensive player. He does play both ways, and he can give him some snaps on the offensive side of the football, which does fill like a third of a wide receiver slot for them. But it also fills another need, which is a cornerback slot for them. I think that this is where Travis Hunter goes, is to the Patriots. So next on the clock is what do we got? The Jags up next. Can't see my board. Made it too small for me, but big enough for you guys to see. There we go. Okay, so we have the Jaguars next. And we've already seen the likes of Abdul Carter off the board. Cam Ward is the only quarterback so far. Will Campbell's gone. Travis Hunter. You still have a boatload of really good players right here. Now, again, this is a team that needs everything. They need offense. They need defense. They need interior. They need exterior. They need it all. So what do? Well, you take probably the best player available. You missed out on Abdul Carter. And I think that this is where, your first major defensive lineman is going to go outside of Abdul Carter. And it's probably going to be Mason Graham. Raiders, they survived. their boy slipped. Shedeur Sanders, who's not going to throw at the combine, is now a Raider. Go figure. I do expect the Raiders to try to go hard after him. They're probably trying to work something out, try to gauge his interest. Maybe he's purposely tanking with the other teams, trying to shed interest, like I was saying earlier. But it is a possibility he becomes a Jet. But I just hope that Aaron Glenn is not that stupid. I hope that Aaron Glenn finds a way to limp through this season. And you're going to hear me say that a lot, limp through the season. All that means is these fringe teams, or these teams that need a lot of work, new head coaches, new GMs, but they need a lot of work. Why couldn't the Jets get through this season with Tyrod Taylor? Is he free agent this year? And even if he is, why couldn't you re-sign him to a deal and keep him around? Let's see. He is signed. So they've got a quarterback. They've got Tyrod Taylor for this season. You're only paying the dude $6 million, $7 million all in for this season. That's your answer. You get through the season with Tyrod Taylor. There's no reason to take a quarterback right now. We know that Aaron Glenn loves his DBs, but I think that Aaron Glenn's going to be smart. He's probably going to go after defensive line first. Even though you have the likes of, J.D. Brown or Jade Brown, you've got James Pierce sitting there. You've got Mike Green, if you guys believe in Mike Green. You've got the big brawler in Kenneth Grant sitting there. You've got Walter Nolan sitting there. And they needed defensive linemen in a bad way. I don't think that we're going to have two Michigan men off the board before, we see another defensive lineman from somewhere else, like a Derek Harmon, or an edge like Mykel Williams or a Shamar Stewart, or even a DB. If they really believe in Jade Barron, then he's gone. Or if they really believe in Jihad Campbell, which I do, then he's gone. He'll be a Jet. So for right now, I think that, my last mock, I threw the Jets Mason Graham. So based on my last mock, it was Jalen Milroe, Abdul Carter, Cam Ward, Kelvin Banks, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders. In that order. That's what I had right now to this point. And then I went Mason Graham, who's already off the board, to the Jets. So I think that there's a pivot here. I think the Jets are still going to stick with the defensive line, but it's going to be James Pierce. Assuming his combine work is going to match everything that we've seen so far. So good question. Just curious if he was available later on in the draft, would you want Travis Hunter on the Lions? That's a hell of a question. I guess this is the question that probably deserves a much longer answer, but I will say this. Do we want a diva-like syndrome on the team? Do you think that Dan Campbell would be willing, to deal with another diva-like syndrome? I think J-Mo was probably enough of a headache so far. You get those two knuckleheads in a room together, who knows what could happen other than great things? I think great things could happen. But I'm going to say it's probably a hard pass. I think that they would, love his cornerback play. And I don't know, something worries me about Travis Hunter. I think that he's been too good for too long. Something's just not adding up to me with this whole situation. But I think he's a hell of a football player. Just be interesting to see what actually happens throughout the rest of his career. Especially if he's going to play both sides of the football, because that's going to wear him down. So last week I had the Panthers taking James Pierce. Which obviously he's now gone. Whoops, why did it just do that? Before the Panthers, the Panthers are projected to select either an edge rusher here, defensive lineman, or a DB. They could use all three. but I think it's going to be defense. I think that, the fact that they're probably just a few pieces away on that defense from having a really good defense, eventually, why not start now? And I think that we might see our first linebacker / edge rusher kind of come off the board here. He's a combo player. Just depends on the system that he's going to be put in. And it could be a player that we want for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, I don't want to see Nick Scorton go this far, and I think the Nick Scorton could become a Jet, to be honest with you. But something tells me they're going to bite on Mike Green instead of Jalen Walker. Carolina Panthers will take Mike Green. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to deal with prime time. All right, let's get to these Saints. Saints are expected to draft, according to this board, wide receiver, tight end, or defensive lineman. Now, there is some really good some really good tight ends in this draft. There's a handful of good. There's 2 great ones, in my opinion. But they're 2 very different styles of tight ends in this draft. You have the Colston Loveland from University of Michigan. Where's my other guy? And Tyler Warren. Now, if it were me, when I look at a guy like Tyler Warren, I see a guy that, he's got like the Brock Wright written all over him. He's a blocker. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to fly down and catch a bunch of passes for you. I think that's more of the Colston Loveland. And maybe I have him exactly backwards. But when I see Tyler Warren doing his work, I just don't see him as a pass catcher, as an elite pass catcher at the next level. In the Saints system, I think that they really need a wide receiver right now. We might see our first wide receiver off the board, which is going to happen, and that's going to be Mr. McMillan going to the Saints. Give them some weapons there on the offense. Number 10, Chicago Bears. You know what? F the Bears, right? F the Bears. The Bears are projected to select a defensive player, according to many analysts. Matter of fact, let me pull up a consensus board here. And the consensus is either they're going to draft an offensive tackle or some sort of offensive lineman to help out Caleb Williams, or it's defensive end, defensive tackle. Like, they're going to stick with the trenches, but it's either or. But the consensus that I'm looking at right now is telling me that it is going to be a defensive player. I apologize. I thought it was offensive player. This is Pro Football Network's consensus. No, I lied. It is Tyler Booker, inside outside lineman. Tyler Booker out of Alabama. I disagree. I think that the answer here is probably going to be Michael Williams, edge out of Georgia. Next up, San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco 49ers, they need a lot of help. They lost a linebacker. They had players that didn't even want to suit up at the end of the season. Players that walked off the field. There's a lot that this team is going to need. They're going to be going through it, but they definitely need some guard and tackle work to help Brock Purdy out in their future. Assuming that they're about to invest in Brock Purdy, you got to keep the guy upright. You've got to keep him healthy. You can do that with a blocking tight end right now. Kittle's not getting any younger. You could bring in a Tyler Warren or, Colston Loveland. And then maybe, you're walking off a Kittle here in the next year or so with a trade. I think that makes a lot of sense. You still have some high-profile offensive tackles that are on the board. Pretty much all of them right now. Josh Simmons, Calvin Banks, Armand Membu. Last week's draft, I had Jack Sawyer going to Chicago, and I had Jelon Walker going to San Francisco. This week, I'm rolling with Calvin Banks Jr. I think that they're going to want to protect Brock Purdy, assuming that that deal gets done. Now, last week, talking about the Cowboys, I thought that that was a perfect landing spot for Ashton Genty. I mean, number 12 pick, Dallas Cowboys, could definitely use a running back. But then I also started thinking about, man, they really love to address the trenches too. And it doesn't help you to have the best running back. You can have the best engine in the world, but if you don't have the right size chassis to put that thing on to carry it across the finish line, it doesn't matter. You need to open up the holes. So I think that they're probably going to be looking at offensive line here, and I think they're going to be looking at defensive line here, and it's going to be a toss-up between who's available after the first 11 picks have come off the board. So the needs analysis says running back, wide receiver, tackle, edge rusher. You still have some pretty solid tackles. You got Armand Membu, which I think would be a reach. You got Josh Simmons, which I think is a good play. And then you have pretty much any defensive lineman that you could ask for right here. Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, which look good. Shamar Stewart on the edge. They have options. The question is, Micah Parsons, all right, they're going to have to replace him. Offensive line, they definitely need some help. So which direction do they go? Well, it's not Ashton Genty anymore. Assuming that they actually make the right play here, I think that they're going to go Kenneth Grant, because so far, Mozzie Smith has not worked out, and they're going to double down on Michigan defensive linemen. All right. On the clock is Miami Dolphins. Now, last week I had them taking Malachi Starks. I really like Malachi. I love his work. But I think that protecting Tua is probably the most important thing that you can do if you don't want Tua to end his career next year. I'm surprised the guy's even playing. I wouldn't be personally. So I think that you're going to have to protect him. And that means you're going to have to bring in Josh Simmons. Don't even play with it. Just get the guy some protection. How about the Colts? Well, the Colts last week, I had them taking Michael Williams. They definitely need, an edge rusher, a DB. But this is where I think that we're going to see a tight end go. Get Richardson some help here. Get him some passing help. Get him someone, that can play on the offensive line as a blocker, blocking downfield, can catch passes as needed. And that is going to be Tyler Warren. And then the Falcons. Last week, this is where I had Nick Scorton going. I'm really surprised if Scorton is available this late. He would have to have failed in the combine. But the Atlanta Falcons definitely need some help here. A lot of analysts have an edge going. Let's see here. So Falcons taking a pass rusher in the first round. I had them doing it last week with Nick Scorton. I think that they're going to do it again this week. I've got to see some more combine tape on some of these other guys. I don't think it's a wide receiver move. You could go corner here because they definitely need a corner. But I don't think it's going to be a traditional edge rusher. Instead of Nick Scorton, I think that they're going to take a linebacker here. And in their defensive system, Jihad Campbell makes sense. Next up, you've got the Cardinals. Now, last week in Mock 101, I had Will Campbell all the way down at number 16, but we know that Will Campbell has been gone since pick number 3. Highly unlikely, I know. They definitely need guard play. I think it's too early to take a guard unless you find a smaller tackle that you can convert. The defensive line and bigger tackle is a better need for them. When I look at the Birds and their depth chart, here's what I see. Okay, you got Kyler Murray. Great. You got James Conner. Okay. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. Perfect. You got Michael Wilson, so they have an offense. Greg Dortch, Trey McBride. Trey McBride's okay. Greg Dortch, that dude can play at times, but I don't think he's a barn burner. But I'd say their tight ends are okay. Left tackle, Paris Johnson Jr. Left guard, Evan Brown. Their center, Frohold. And then right guard, Will Hernandez. And then Kelvin Beachum. That's their offensive line. I think their offensive line is, average at best. And that might even be nice by saying that they're average. I think that their defensive line needs a lot of help. They got Roy Lopez, Naquan Jones, Zaven Collins. And, that's about it. They got Kaiser White for the linebacker in the middle. They got Dennis Gardecki as the Sam linebacker. Sean Murphy Bunting as a left corner. They could definitely use a left corner. I'm sorry, but Sean Murphy Bunting, he's just not the guy. Buda Baker, keeping him. Starling Thomas, really? They took the Lions, leftovers and turned him into a starter. They need a corner. Sean Murphy Bunting and Starling Thomas are just not the answer. This is where Jade Barron is off the board. Bengals. Next week we do trades. Genty still slipping. I know. Still on the board. Still slipping. Bengals. Wide receiver. Guard. Defensive line. How can you not want to protect Joe Burrow? An amazing comeback from last season. Or do you want to give him a weapon? Somebody to throw to? What makes more sense here? Or what does their running back room look like? Genty is still on the board. Are they going to be able to get a deal done with T. Higgins? Probably not. Are you confident in Chase Brown and Zach Moss and Khalil Herbert as their trio of running backs? Does any one of them really stand out? Chase Brown last season almost had 1,000 yards. Pretty damn good season, right? Drafted last year, rookie. Drafted 2 seasons ago. But is he that game changer of the future? I don't know. If you were to slide somebody in like Genty right there, that could be the game changer of the future. Someone that can help you in the pass game and the run game. But I think it would be a wasted pick because Chase Brown did such a good job last year. I think that they have to address wide receiver. I think that they'll probably fill their needs in free agency for offensive line. And I think that this is a great possibility that Luther Burden, who's only 5'8", 211 or something like that, or 5'11", 208, could be off the board here unless they want to go with a taller Matthew Golden. He's 6 foot 195. Or Emeka Egbuka, 6'1", 205. I think that those are your 3 options. I don't know of anybody else that's really going to jump the list right here again until we see these guys, in the combine. I think that this is a Luther Burden spot to lose. I think he goes to the Bengals. All right, next up, the Seahawks. Seahawks depth chart. This is what it tells me. You got Geno Smith. He's serviceable for this year. They're absolutely going to roll with him. They got Sam Howell as a backup. They got Kenneth Walker III at running back and Zach Charbonnet. Doesn't get much better than that. They got DK Metcalf still on the outside with Jake Bobo backing him up. They got JSN on the other side. They got Tyler Lockett. They're pretty locked and loaded at receiver, running back, and quarterback. Should be good. Noah Fant, yeah, I'm not impressed. I think that you can see a tight end go here. Colston Loveland comes to mind. And then you've got the offensive line, which in my opinion is just a tattered mess. I think that if the Seattle Seahawks want to do something this season, they're going to have to keep Geno Smith upright. He's not getting any younger. His legs aren't getting any faster. I think that Geno just wants to sit back and throw the football. That's why you're either going to take Colston Loveland. I'm sorry, did I already get rid of Colston? No, I didn't. Colston Loveland and give him another pass, a pass catching tight end, someone that's better than Noah Fant, someone that could help out on the offensive line a little bit. Or they're going to take probably the next best tackle in the game that is available in Armand Membu, or you could see Gray Zabel jump in the list here, or you could see Josh Connerly. For this exercise, I think it's Josh Connerly. He is now a Seahawk. On the next bubble here is the Bucks. Yeah, I'm flying through this. Need to get it done tonight. Well, we got like 5 more of these to do, so we'll have plenty of deep conversation on the rest of them. They got Baker Mayfield. They have Bucky Irving, who actually had a pretty darn good season last year. Mike Evans, he is getting old, but man, can that dude still play. They got Chris Godwin, completely torched the Lions last year for a large part of that game. Jalen McMillan, it's good receiver. Cade Otton, he's okay. I think that the Bucks could definitely benefit from, another pass catching tight end. Tristan Wirfs, one of the best as a left tackle. Ben Bredesen, not impressed. Graham Barton had a decent season. Cody Mock, he's been on that roster for a couple of years. He was one of my favorites coming out of the draft. And then Luke Godecki at the right tackle position. Look, I think that they could benefit big time here from adding some strength on this offensive line. A lot of other mock drafts, I'm seeing a lot of defense, a ton of defense. Edge is what's really popping right here. And it would make sense in Todd Bowles' style of defense, but Will Johnson is still on the board here. And they need a corner if they want to hang with the rest of these teams. Will Johnson becomes a Buck at pick number 19. And at pick number 20, the Denver Broncos are on the board, or on the clock. Yeah, Genty's fallen. I know, he's fallen. Surprised he's on the board too. Okay, so when I look at the Bucs, obviously Bo Nix had a pretty stellar first season. Running back Javonte Williams should be able to bounce back a little bit. They have Tyler Batty. Cortland Sutton, expecting more out of him. Devon Veal, I'm not as impressed. Marvin Mims, he's pretty good. A.T. Perry, loved him last year. But when you start looking at the tight end, look, they don't have anything. They have Adam Trotman, Lucas Krull, Nate Adkins, Thomas Yasmin, bunch of nobodies. They carry a fullback and Michael Burton. Their offensive line is a mess between Garrett Bowles, Ben Bowers, Luke Wattenberg, Quinn Menierez, and Mike McGlinchey. McGlinchey's okay. Menierez, he's okay. I would love to see, where the Broncos do something to keep Bo Nix on his feet and make sure that he can do Bo Nix types of things. But do they need a receiver for Bo Nix? Do they need another guy to throw to? Probably not. I think that they're going to need a tackle up front or a tight end. And I think that that's where I'm going to go. I think we're going to give him another weapon to throw to. Or not. You know what? Let me go look at the defense real quick. 3-4-D. Zach Allen, DJ Jones, and Jonathan Franklin Myers. Nick Benito, Alex Singleton. Yeah, they're definitely going to be looking for a 3-4 defense style of an edge rusher, which typically you want bigger guys, and I think they're going to go defensive line then. If you're going to look for a guy that definitely has the speed to do it, the size, 6'3", 305, Walter Nolan, I think, fits that very well. So does Derek Harmon. So does Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart, matter of fact, 290, 6'6", probably makes the most sense here. Given his size, he would fit well into that scheme. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart to the Broncos. Yeah, if Genty went to the Broncos, that would be nuts. All right, next up, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think all signs point to the Steelers keeping Justin Fields. And they'll probably move off of Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson obviously can add, some depth to some of these teams, like a Tennessee Titans team. As a starter, he can add, he can be added to one of those teams where they can forego, the top of this draft and back up and gain some picks. I think it makes the most sense. I think Justin Fields sticks around, becomes a starter. Najee Harris as a running back, he's okay. George Pickens, obviously he's incredible. Von Jefferson is good at times. Roman Wilson's pretty good. Pat Freiermouth, look, I think you need to change out that tight end in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And they definitely could add another wide receiver to this team. But the Steelers have always been predicated on defense. They've got TJ Watt. He's not getting any younger. They've got Cameron Hayward. He's not getting any younger. Keanu Benton's been in the league for a few seasons now. Patrick Queen at the left inside linebacker. Peyton Wilson, he was drafted last year. Deshaun Elliott, former Detroit Lion, not impressed. Minka Fitzpatrick is good. Joey Porter Jr. is good. Cam Sutton, I mean, need I say more? Malachi Starks comes to mind. I think that if you want to step up your safety room and get rid of Deshaun Elliott, potentially, I don't know the contract situation there, but you could definitely add a Malachi Starks here. But I would say defensive line also makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. This draft is fairly deep when it comes to wide receiver. It's not as deep when it comes to tight end. They do need a tight end. I think it's a reach for Colston Loveland right now, but that's what I'm going to do. Colston Loveland becomes a Steeler. I know, it's a crazy pick. Green Bay, they're going to pick a punter twice in a row. Just kidding, but they definitely need a corner, even though it's not listed. I'm sorry, not Green Bay. Bolts. Bolts are up next. The Bolts could use a wide receiver. They could definitely use a tight end, an edge rusher, a running back. Now, when I look at the Bolts depth chart, come on now. Let's pull it up. Here we go. They grabbed Lag McConkey last season. Had a pretty decent season. Quentin Johnston from a couple seasons ago. They got J.K. Dobbins. Of course, they got Herbert tossing the rock around. Will Dissly as a tight end is terrible. Running backs, though. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Hassan Haskins. They definitely need a running back. And I think that this is where you're going to see Mr. Ashton Genty become a Bolt. And that is going to make the Chargers an immediate contender by having a guy like that behind Justin Herbert. He's going to take a lot of pressure off of Herbert. Next up, you got the Packers. Like I was saying earlier, they need a corner. They need edge. They could probably use a safety. Don't know what's going to be happening here with Jair Alexander, but all signs point to he's out. Wide receiver and center. I mean, they need just about everything just like the Lions do. I mean, we have holes potentially everywhere. Needs not as many as the Packers, but holes just about everywhere, just not as many needs. The fact that they need an edge and a corner, I think it would make sense to bring in a Jalon Walker as a linebacker, someone that you can also, rush the quarterback with. I do like Trey Amos. I think that Trey Amos is going to surprise us, hopefully, in the combine. If he is as good as I think he is, he could be the second, if not the first, cornerback off the board. We still have Darius Alexander on the board. Look, I think that Darius has lost his first-round grade based on the tape that I've seen. Demetrius Knight and Donovan Ezraku, I think that both of those guys have the opportunity of jumping up here. Something tells me, though, that the Packers are not going to allow us to take Nick Scorton or Derek Harmon. I think that one of those two guys is going to end up in Green Bay, even though they really don't need a defensive lineman. I think they go with edge here, and I think it's going to be Nick Scorton, and then we're in trouble. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings. They definitely need a safety. I do not have a list of free agents in front of me. Well, that'll be more in the third and fourth mock where we start to really dial things in. But just taking a quick peek, we don't know what's going to happen with the offense because we don't know if it's JJ, we don't know if it's Sam, we don't know if it's Stafford, we don't know if it's Russell Wilson, we don't know who it is. We have no idea who's going to be the quarterback right now. I think it's going to be anybody but JJ at this point. Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, pretty solid in the backfield. I think they're good there. Justin Jefferson, obviously good. Jordan Addison, good. Jaden Naylor, good. TJ Hawkinson, I would be trading him immediately. If I had an opportunity to trade him right now, I would trade him. Without a doubt, I would be getting rid of Hawkinson right now. They may not. Haven't heard anything. Their offensive line definitely needs some help. If we are able to get to them in week 18 with our decimated defense, how could you not address the guard position or tackle position to keep your quarterback, whether it's JJ or anybody else, off the ground? I don't know if Membu is someone that can slot in as a guard. He looks like he's played right tackle pretty much the most of his career, but he is somebody that possibly could. Gray Zabel, honestly, is someone that has played a little bit of guard in his life. Left guard and right tackle and left tackle. So he's a utility guy. Gray Zabel, if he doesn't slip to the Lions, I know he's been mocked to the Lions through many of other draft sites. I think that this is a perfect fit for the Vikings. Gray Zabel, tackle, is now a Viking. Only makes sense. So as you can see with the way that these picks are lining up, at least for me right now, this is why, if the Lions were to move up, great. But I think the Lions need to move back. I think that they need to move back. I mean, you still look at all these players that we still have. Walter Nolan, Malachi Starks, Derek Harmon, Jalen Walker, Trey Amos, Darius Alexander, Demetrius Knight, Donovan Ezrakow, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, Princely, Umenamian, Shamar Turner, Jack Sawyer. You've got plenty of big-time playmakers that are still left on the board. On the clock is the Texans. I'd have to say that interior offensive line is probably their biggest concern, and that's why Tyler Booker makes a lot of sense to me here. But, do they need another wide receiver? That's the question that I haven't figured out yet, and I probably won't figure out. But the Texans depth chart tells me they've got C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell to start the season. Is Stephon Diggs going to come back? We don't know. Robert Woods, he's old as gets. Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie III, Jared Wayne, Johnny Johnson, Xavier Johnson. I mean, they have a plethora of guys, but do they have playmakers? That's the question. Does Stroud have playmakers? We saw that when Nico Collins, and Tank Dell, when they're out of the game, Stroud struggles big time. They need another playmaker that he can latch onto, and that's where I think that Matthew Golden becomes a Texan. He's from or played in Texas. He's going to stay in Texas. L.A. Rams. Tight end, tackle, linebacker, cornerback, probably everything, right? Last year, they addressed defensive line and edge rusher / linebacker. I mean, Jared Verse, what an incredible story. Braden Fisk, another incredible story. Why not triple down on this defense and add a linebacker and stack it? Their front, right side of their defense is going to be insane if they do it that way. And they probably will. I think that they take Jalon Walker. Next up, we've got the Ravens. Last season, when the Ravens lost that game, what really lost in that game? They weren't able to stop anybody. I think that edge and corner is what they're missing. You still have Trey Amos on the board. You have Demetrius Knight as a linebacker. You have Donovan Ezrakow. You have Landon Jackson. I think somehow they love Princely, Umenamian, edge, Mississippi. Is now a Raven. And here we are with the Detroit Lions. He goes, I think, what did he say? I think we go edge with our first pick and then another corner. All right. How many people do we have in? I haven't even looked to see how many people we have in yet. I'll make this one a quick one. We've got a few more picks to go here. All right, so what do we have realistically on the board? We know that the Lions need some defensive line help. They have to. They have to get thin. They have to get they were really thin last year, and they're thin to start this season with Lee McNeil banged up. They need somebody, right? So I think that going defensive line makes a lot of sense. I think that you can do it in three ways. I think if you find the right linebacker that can also rush the quarterback, that also has coverage ability, that is probably the best fit we need right now. If you really look at what our biggest issue of last season was, it was when we lost all of our linebackers. Once we were down to Jack Campbell and we didn't have anybody that could cover, I mean, they couldn't cover anything. That is when we really started to see teams like the Bills pick us apart. Sending running backs, streaking up the field, taking the linebacker with them. Turner was biting on every play action pass. It was bad. I did like what, Nowitzki and Nowaski and Ben Nyman were able to do when we had a healthier group in, when we had some more guys on the defensive line. They were able to play pretty well, but they're really good backups, right? They're really good role players. They were never meant to be full-time starters. And our defensive line the entire defense just decimated. But if you really go back and look at the tape and you look at where did we really struggle, it was linebacker. And you can rush the quarterback with a linebacker, absolutely. But I think that if we have a really good coverage linebacker, and we've missed out on some of the top-tier edge rushers. We've missed out on Princely. We missed out on, Jalon Walker. That is the guy I would love to have on this team. Nick Scorton, would love to have him on this team. Nick Scorton is your next Marcus Davenport. Almost exact cut of the same cloth. Jahad Campbell, please slip in this draft. There's some really good football players that could make a meaningful difference on this defense. And I do think it is defense that the Lions are going to be taking with their first pick. I do. But I'm not going to limit it to just edge or defensive line or linebacker. I'm hoping that Brad is going to have this three-pronged approach and say, look, I need the best of one of these three. The best on the board at one of these three. And if one of those three is not the best, in my opinion, I need to back up off of this pick, gain a couple of picks, package, and move back up into the early, 40s or the late 30s and double down. And I think that would be the best way for the Detroit Lions to stack and then stack again early in this draft. When you look at the draft picks that we have a first, a second, a third, a fourth, and then I think a sixth and like 3 sevenths or something like that. We don't need a 6 and 3 sevenths. Get rid of those picks. Get rid of them all. Package them all up. Get us into the third round. Get us, back into the second. Do whatever you got to do. We shouldn't be picking in the 7th round this year. It makes absolutely no sense. So that's just my 2 cents. Look, TJ Sanders, loved his work. His tape is good. Landon Jackson and Jack Sawyer are still on the board. If Landon Jackson is seriously sitting here at 28, and if his combine is as good as I'm expecting it to be, 6'7", 280, the dude's an animal. He's got great heart. He's an edge rusher. He's everything that we're looking for. I think it's a nice fit. Jack Sawyer, I would be a hard pass on for right now. Again, we'll see. We'll see what this combine turns out to be. But then if you go look at Demetrius Knight, all right, this guy that I'm telling you, his tape is undeniable. He's 6'2", 245. He's a little bit shorter, but his arm length, you guys know how I am with arm length. Let me pull this back up. Demetrius Knight. Demetrius Knight. Here we go. 33 and a quarter. So he's close. He's close, but he's got a pretty decent wingspan. Really decent wingspan. At the Shrine Bowl, though, he was measured at 6'1" and an 1/8. So if he's coming in at 6'1" and an 1/8, I'm gonna have to hard pass. Even though his tape is, I'm telling you, it's undeniable. He's really, 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 really good football player. Donovan Ezrakow is another guy that I like just as much as I like with Landon Jackson. He's 6'2", 247, though. He's a little bit small. But he could fit more as a linebacker. His coverage grade is incredible. His pass rush grade is incredible. His run defense grade is incredible. Plays outside the tackle on 90% of the snaps. So I think that both of those guys that you could pick up in the early second round, we would be completely fine with. I think that Trey Amos, the fact that he's still on the board, makes a lot of sense. Then there's Derek Harmon. Still on the board. I can't remember from the tape the other night. I thought that there was something we didn't like when we were doing our members only review. I thought that there was something we didn't like about his tape on one of the highlights that we watched. Where's his Derek Harmon? Here's his. We don't have enough stats on him. See, that's the hard thing. I don't have arm length. I don't have his ape score. I don't have the wingspan. I don't have any of it. So it's hard to just go all in. And that's why I'll take Walter Nolan. There's no way Walter Nolan's going to slip this far, but if he does, we need an impact player that can come in as a rookie and play next to DJ Reader. And this is where I'm hoping that Brad Holmes is going to be moving us back into the early part, mid part of the second round, like another top 40 pick. And if he can do that, we will end up with another edge rusher in this draft. And if he can get us another pick and stay in the top 60, at least, if we can keep our 61, or 60. If we keep our number 60, then we will be able to add a linebacker. And I think that those are the first three picks that we have to attack in this draft, and another corner. And I think that you're going to have to sell out a little bit to do it this year. I think that Brad has to trade up. He's going to have to get rid of a pick next year. We have 2/3 next year, one compensatory, one ours. Get rid of them. Get rid of that third and that fourth and package something up and get us back into this draft where it's going to be thick between 33 and 45 or 50. And let's stack this year. I know a lot of you are saying, got to go all in for Myles Garrett. Got to go all in and somehow get Max Crosby in. Look, I understand it. Why not go all in and draft? Yep, we've got rookies on the field. We've done pretty darn well with rookies so far. We were one of the youngest teams last year to go to the NFC Championship game. We were in 2 years ago, one of the youngest teams in the league. A lot of rookies playing. Matter of fact, I think we had four that we drafted that year playing. So I'm not so much worried as long as they're the right player at the right time. Walter Nolan, yeah, he's 6'3", 305. I don't know. What were you saying? Yeah, Nolan would be crazy at pick 20. I don't see how it happens. I liked his tape. I thought that there was something about Derek Harmon that we didn't like the other night. He's 6'5". That's about as high as I would go. For my defensive lineman, just my personal taste, it is 75. Where did it go? Here we go. 6'3.5" to 6'5", 295 to 310 as far as weight, at least 9 3/4 inch hands, at least 33.5 inch arms, ape score of 107. Definitely have to run a sub 540, 10 split under 165, vertical over 29 inch, broad over 115, and you should be able to put up 25 on the bench. You know, I know some guys only put up 20 here or there, but you should be able to put up 25 on the bench. If you're extremely tall with really long arms, I think that we know the answer there. It's kind of hard to put up the weight when you've got really long arms to lock out. The shorter arms, the guys can put up more weight. If you ever noticed, the shorter guys in your class usually could bench more. And that's because them going from here to here is not, as long as me, where I've got to go all the way out with my really long arms to lock out. Short guys have a benefit there. Okay, Commanders on the clock. Now, according to this report, the Lions would have taken Tyleik Williams, defensive line out of Ohio State. Tyleik Williams, where is he at? All right, so he's at number 38. Let's run him down. So he's 6'3", 327. So he's more of a DJ Reader size as far as weight, more of a nose tackle. don't know enough about him. Honestly, I have not watched any of his tape yet. Landon Jackson is the other guy I like here. So if we were going to go edge and Landon was available, he is 6'7", 280. I just have to see it transpire into the combine. So Commanders, look, they need another wide receiver or a tight end. They need somebody for Jaden Daniels to throw to. They also need someone to probably help Jaden Daniels stay upright. Tackle, edge, corner, wide receiver. I mean, I don't think they can go wrong with any of those picks. Jack Betch, really liked him in those bowl games. 6'2", 215. He's a field stretcher. I think that he has a good opportunity there with Washington. Then you've got the Bills. They're looking for just about anything too. Defensive line, linebacker, corner. Trey Amos is not going to last on this board. Malachi Starks is definitely not going to last on this board. Malachi will be a Buffalo Bill. Then we've got the Kansas City Chiefs. Tackle, defensive line, linebacker, according to PFF. And it does make sense. I mean, their offensive line clearly got their asses kicked last year, this year in the Super Bowl. So Armand Membu is going to have to go help out Patrick Mahomes. Then you got Philly on the clock, wide receiver, guard, edge, corner is what PFF is saying that they're going to need. I still think that Trey Amos has an opportunity to slip in, but not on this team, not on a team that's pretty well set for corner, even though Darius Slay is going to have to be replaced at some point. As far as an edge rusher goes, you still have Donovan Ezra-Cow. You still have Landon Jackson. Defensive line, you still have TJ Sanders. But for wide receiver here, this dude, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, pretty impressive dude to watch. Jalen probably wants another weapon. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with a wide receiver here. Personally, I like Jaden Higgins. This dude is an absolute freak. 6'4", 215. This is the guy that if the Lions are going to grab a receiver, Jaden Higgins, like I said earlier, a couple weeks ago, is someone that I would expect to get a draft visit for the Detroit Lions is Jaden Higgins. I absolutely love his ability on the field and his size. This is exactly what we're missing. So if we were to lose Patrick, I would expect Jaden Higgins to slide right in. I expect the Eagles to probably go after a wide receiver here. So we'll put Egbuka to the Eagles. So that's it. I really didn't want to go past this. I don't know why I selected both rounds, but I didn't really, I'll have to reselect all this again. I didn't really want to do 2 rounds. I just wanted to get through the first round tonight for mock draft 2.0. Next week, we're going to be doing some trades, or actually I'll probably do another one this week, which I'll spend a lot more time on, obviously. So that's it. That's Mock My Draft 2.0, Mock Draft Monday. I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Let me know in the comments below, how crazy were my picks? Do you believe in any of them are going to stick? I will tell you, for the Detroit Lions, I have picked 7 players out of the last 2 drafts. 7 players out of the last 2 drafts that Brad Holmes has selected. What am I going to get this year? I don't know. I don't get a prize for it, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys in the next one tomorrow morning. Rise and Grind morning show, 8 a.m. You guys have a good night.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
is the future. Evolution. This is the future.